Welcome to the deep dive. You gave us a stack of sources covering everything from vehicle dynamics all the way to constitutional law, and we've synthesized it all. We're giving you the ultimate shortcut to being prepared for one of the most common yet critically dangerous things we all do, driving. Today, we are focusing specifically on that moment when traffic stops unexpectedly. We're not talking about a routine stop sign. We mean those sudden, chaotic halts, congestion, an accident, maybe a school bus that demand immediate life-saving action from you.
That's right. And this deep dive is, well, it's dual purpose. First, we tackle the mechanics of defensive driving and collision avoidance, so the physics of what happens in front of you. And second, we'll move into the legal and logistical side of things, specifically police traffic stops. And we'll look at the surprisingly nuanced data on how these interactions impact public safety and even crime rates.
Our mission is to integrate these two worlds of risk, the physical and the legal. Whether you're avoiding a devastating rear-end collision or navigating a tense interaction with an officer, you need knowledge that goes way beyond the driver's manual. Okay, let's unpack this. We have to start with the sheer physics of the danger. When traffic just stops cold, the immediate primary threat is the rear-end collision. And these aren't just frustrating insurance claims. The high frequency of whiplash and really significant structural damage makes this the most costly type of crash.
The sources are very clear that, well, mechanical failure can be a factor. Human error is almost always the cause. We all know the main culprits: distractions, speeding, following too closely. But it's crucial to understand the mechanism. Distraction, whether it's visual or cognitive, it introduces this critical delay in what's known as perception reaction time, or PRT.
Okay.
Right. So if you're traveling at highway speeds, even a half-second delay in realizing traffic is stopping means you've lost dozens of feet of braking distance. So the core prevention strategy, it centers entirely on space management. We talk about maintaining a safe following distance, that 3-second rule. But that distance isn't just for you to stop, it's about giving the driver behind you time to react. And here's a critical action. If you are forced to stop unexpectedly, you have to use your hazard lights promptly. It's a much faster, more emphatic warning than just your brake lights.
Okay, here's where the sources introduce a fascinating layer of complexity. What happens when you do everything right, you stop in time, but you glance in your mirror and realize the huge truck behind you definitely is not going to?
That is the nightmare scenario, and it's exactly why your safe following distance is a multi-purpose tool. The sources suggest that in that exact moment, if stopping is imminent but you think you're about to be rear-ended by a much bigger vehicle, it may be better to take a calculated escape route if there is one.
An escape route. That sounds counterintuitive. You just avoided one crash, and now you're saying intentionally steer away.
Precisely. Because if you are stopped and then you get hit from behind, the impact is going to push you violently into the vehicle in front of you.
The sandwich.
Exactly. The sandwich. A secondary crash that often causes the most damage. The escape route might mean steering onto a paved shoulder or moving just slightly to the side to give the car behind a clearer view.
Ah, so you're creating an option for them too.
You are, but, and this is critical, the sources stress you should never swerve blindly into another lane without confirming it's clear. The goal is to mitigate the secondary impact.
That shifts the focus from just stopping to strategic maneuvering. That's a great distinction. So on the human side, why do so many of us fail to see the signs that traffic is slowing down in the first place?
It fundamentally boils down to a failure to scan ahead. We know distraction is a huge part of it, but the real issue is that many drivers just focus on the car immediately in front of them.
Right, I'm guilty of that sometimes.
We all are. They miss the cascade of brake lights 3, 4, 5 cars ahead that signals a major backup is happening. The sources also show that fatigue, even mild drowsiness, slows that perception reaction time dramatically. It can sometimes mirror the impairment levels at low-grade intoxication, so that buffer you think you have is already gone because your brain is lagging.
So if we accept that we're all fallible, what is the safest communication technique to protect ourselves from the person behind us, the one who's distracted or tired?
The safest method is what you could call preemptive signaling. It's a technique a lot of professional drivers use.
Okay.
You activate your brake lights early by just easing off the accelerator before you actually hit the brake pedal.
Ah, so you're giving them a little flash of red before you even start slowing down.
Exactly. It gives the driver behind you a warning before your deceleration begins. It's smooth, it prevents a jarring stop, and it uses the system you already have. And again, if it's a sudden halt, get those hazard lights on immediately.
We've talked about avoiding the immediate crash, but these traffic stops create dangers that ripple outward, right?
far beyond the initial impact. What are these secondary hazards? The term secondary accident is critical here. These are collisions that happen because of the first crash. They often involve vehicles swerving at the last minute or first responders arriving on scene. The sources emphasize that police and EMTs are most vulnerable to being struck in that initial phase of handling a crash.
I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, and beyond collisions, stopped traffic creates these hot zones for other issues. You see increased risk for pedestrians and cyclists who might weave between cars. And of course, frustration leads to road rage. Drivers really need to practice patience to avoid turning a delay into a dangerous confrontation.
And what about the car itself? Sitting in traffic for a long time, especially in the summer, that can cause problems, can't it?
Oh, absolutely. Overheating is a genuine risk during long periods of idling. You have to monitor your temperature gauge. But if your car does stall in the middle of traffic, the protocol is all about safety and visibility.
Okay, what's the checklist?
First step, stay calm. Second, turn on your hazard lights immediately. You're now in obstruction. Third, try restarting if it's safe. If it won't start, carefully steer to the shoulder. And this is crucial. If you have to get out of the car, you stand well clear of the traffic lanes. The sources remind us the car can be replaced. You can't.
That's a perfect transition. We've covered the physical halt, the stall, the crash. Now let's shift to the legal halt, the flashing blue lights. Traffic police can obviously stop you, but what are the common categories of reasons in the legal sources you looked at?
The reasons are pretty broad, and they're all rooted in public safety and enforcing vehicle codes. Most commonly, it's a specific traffic violations, speeding, running a light, that sort of thing. But police also conduct stops based on suspicion of impaired driving, equipment violations like a broken taillight, or routine checks in some areas. A more critical and often disputed reason is suspicious driving behavior. If a vehicle matches a description from a crime, or the driver is just being erratic, that can trigger a stop.
So, you've been signaled to pull over. What are the key actions you need to take to make sure that interaction stays safe, smooth, and legally sound?
Compliance and clarity are paramount. First, pull over safely. You want a well-lit shoulder, not the center lane if you can help it. Then turn on your hazard lights. It signals that you see them and you're complying.
And inside the car?
Inside the car, movement is the enemy of safety. Keep your hands visible, preferably right on the steering wheel, and just try to stay calm. When you're asked for documents, you have to inform the officer before you reach for them. My wallet is in my back pocket, or my registration is in the glove box.
So you're narrating your actions to avoid any misunderstanding?
Precisely. You are complying, but you are managing the interaction proactively.
Okay, now let's talk rights. What are the non-negotiable legal protections you have during a stop?
The most fundamental right is the right to remain silent. And the sources really stress the importance of exercising it politely. You can just say, "Officer, I choose to remain silent." That can prevent you from accidentally making statements that could be used against you later.
Even if you think you're innocent.
Especially then. Second, you have the right to refuse a search. An officer cannot search your vehicle without your consent, a warrant, or what's called probable cause.
And what is probable cause in this context?
It means specific, articulable facts that would lead a reasonable person to believe a crime is happening. So the visible presence of contraband, the smell of marijuana where it's illegal, something concrete. Without that, they need your consent.
So if they don't have probable cause and you refuse the search, how long can they keep you there?
Legally, the duration of the stop has to be reasonable and related to why they stopped you in the first place. A routine stop for a minor ticket should generally last between 10 to 20 minutes. If it extends way beyond what's necessary, that detention can become illegal.
So what can you do?
If the officer starts asking questions unrelated to the stop, you have the right to ask, "Am I free to go?" If the answer is yes, you should safely leave. If it's no, you're being detained. And that's when your right to silence is even more critical.
Let's zoom out now and look at the societal impact. We put a lot of resources into traffic enforcement. Does it actually pay off? Do traffic stops reduce accidents or crime?
In terms of accident reduction, the data is relatively clear. Yes, they are highly effective, particularly with targeted enforcement. Studies show that going after impaired drivers and making sure cars are compliant, fixing broken headlights, that directly prevents crashes. It's a proven deterrent.
That makes sense for road safety. But the sources also talk about traffic stops as a crime reduction tool, this idea of proactive policing. How does stopping a car for an expired tag actually intercept criminal activity?
It works through two main mechanisms. One, just the increased police visibility acts as a broad deterrent. Criminals are less likely to operate in areas where police are frequently pulling people over.
Okay, visibility. What's the other one?
The other is more direct. Stops often lead to collateral discoveries, apprehending someone who has an outstanding felony warrant, or finding illegal weapons or drugs that weren't the reason for the initial stop. However, and we have to address this nuance, the data on crime reduction is mixed. Simply conducting a high volume of stops can be a massive drain on resources without a proportional drop in serious crime.
So it's not about the quantity of stops, but the quality.
Exactly. The sources suggest effectiveness is maximized only through strategic, data-driven, implementation-focusing stops in high-crime areas, or on specific intelligence targets, not just relying on volume.
That balance is essential context. We've covered everything from reaction time physics to legal precedent today.
Absolutely. And the core lesson here is that preventative driving, staying alert, managing your distance, communicating clearly, that is the single best way to avoid having to navigate either a collision or a complex legal interaction. You control your input.
So what does this all mean? We established that driver distraction and fatigue are the primary engine of collisions, far outweighing mechanical failures. If the sources show that the most effective policing is strategic and data-driven, meaning enforcement works best when resources are focused and scarce, does that mean the single most critical yet undermanaged resource we have on the road isn't police or technology, but our own attention span? Something to think about the next time you hear a traffic report.
Please like, subscribe, and get notified.